So recently I was in Florida, and with my wife every day we would take a walk in this park. And there were skateboards, there were bikes, there were electrically powered bikes, there were hoverboards, there were all kinds of gadgets and gizmos. And about a week ago, we were walking down this bike path basically, and here comes this 4-year-old kid on a bicycle, and he had feet on the pedals, hand on the handlebars, and he was just going straight as an arrow. His dad had his hand on the bike seat. So if you'd asked this 4-year-old, hey, what are you doing? He would have said, I'm riding a bike. And if I had said, wow, you're a big boy, he would say, yeah. But the little secret is, while it's true that he was riding a bike, and while it's true his hands were on the handlebars, his feet were on the pedals, and he was going straight ahead, his dad had his hand on the seat of that bike. Now, it's not to say that his being on the bike had no relevance at all to where the bike went or how it went. It's just that it would be silly for him to forget that his dad had his hand on the bike seat. 20 years ago, I remember taking a flight lesson, like as an airplane. Did this one time. And I learned how to bank the plane, how to steer the plane, and we made a couple, banks and so on. And I thought this morning, if I had been that instructor, I would have been nervous if I'd had Will Rice flying the plane. The reason he was not is because there are 2 yokes in that little plane, and while I had my hands on one yoke, the pilot had his hands on the other. It's not to say that my actions were irrelevant. It's to say that to forget that there's a pilot there would be naive at very best. And so in life, we can either become very proud or very discouraged because we forget that there's a God and that God is at work in our lives. In Deuteronomy chapter 8, Moses was basically warning the children of Israel about what was going to happen when they went into the land of Canaan. If it sounds similar to the other day, it's because it is. It's the same, some of the same points that God is making here. But in Deuteronomy chapter 8, the Bible says in verse 18, but thou shalt remember, this is Moses to Israel, thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant which he sware unto thy fathers as it is this day. It is he that giveth thee. That's a good thing for us to remember. On the one hand, we can get too low, too discouraged. We can think, oh, I'm nobody, nobody likes me, and you've totally forgotten God. Or you can have your own kind of Christian version of rags to riches. I was nobody. I could do nothing. My grandma had a third grade education. Look at me now. I'm famous. I travel. I preach to thousands of people. I've got 4 honorary doctorate degrees. Well, hey, I don't know your heart. That's all good. But we just need to make sure that when we're giving testimony, either of going from sinner to saint or from, saint with nothing to saint that's on top of the world, we just need to remember that there's a God. If I am discouraged and think no one likes me, then I've forgotten God. If I think, wow, look at all I've done, I'm all that in a bag of chips, that's naive at best, because there is a God. Moses says, and he, God, humbled thee and allowed you or suffered thee to hunger. Well, is that a nice thing for God to do? Here's Israel coming out of Egypt in the wilderness. Here's an aging man that is hungry because he hasn't eaten. God did that. Here's a young child that hasn't had anything to drink. God did that. He allowed thee to hunger, but then the Bible says, and fed thee with manna which thou knewest not. God allows need and then provides for the need. And if that, there are those that would scoff at the Bible that have a name for that. But the bottom line is it's true. God allows sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. God does not want me to get too high or too low, because both those demonstrate an ignorance of God's literal presence in my story. So God allowed you to hunger, and he also fed thee with manna which thou knowest not, neither did thy fathers know. Why did he do this? That he might make thee know that man doth not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. Friend, if you have great success, don't forget God. If you feel like you don't have a friend in the world, don't forget God. God humbled thee. And verse 14 says, when you get to a land that you don't deserve, and you're eating from vineyards you didn't build, and you're living in houses that you didn't build, then thy heart be lifted up, and thou forget the Lord thy God, which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt. When I'm so discouraged, I can't remember that God is with me, I'm in a bad place. When I get so high that I forget that God is with me, I'm in a bad place. So what's the bottom line? The bottom line is don't forget God. You know, you can't recall what you don't notice. So this week, I came home, and I'm by myself for today. And I came home with just a backpack and some things in it. I was missing my hairdryer. Now, maybe you don't need a hairdryer, and good for you. My hair is incorrigible. I have to freeze it and then chisel it and then freeze it again just to have it look like it's been combed. And some people, they go to bed, they get up, and magically their hair just goes the way it's supposed to do. My hair doesn't do that. So I have a hairdryer, yes. And at my house, as opposed to my trailer, there's a sink, and we have an outlet with a cheater that has 15 outlets, so you can plug in all your irons and your hairdryer and so on. And usually our hairdryer is hanging up right there. So the other night I called back to the trailer and talked to my wife and said, hey, do we have a hairdryer here at the house? So I've left where I was for meetings, and I'm back in Tennessee, and by the time you get this, who knows, maybe I'll be back in Florida again. At any rate, I said, where's the hairdryer? She said, well, have you checked under the sink? So I looked under the sink. No hairdryer. Have you checked the middle cupboard in our room? I checked the middle cupboard, dug through all kinds of boxes, no hairdryer. Did you look under the bed? I looked under the bed, dug stuff up, couldn't find it. She said, well, I don't understand. Usually it's just hanging right by the sink in the bathroom. I said, I walked in, looked around the corner, and there it was, big as life. If it were a snake, of course, it could have bitten me. So what does that mean? It means a couple things. I need help, and I have a helpmeet, thankfully. It also means that I missed what was right in front of me because I forgot it. Now, look, friend, you can't recall what you don't notice. Today, don't live in ignorance. Don't live in ignorance. Do not ignore God and His place in your story. When you acknowledge God, it will be a preventative to both discouragement and arrogance and put you where you ought to be today.